What's up, everybody? My name's Caleb Williams. I'm here with Don Rufran, and welcome to the fastest growing YouTube channel when it comes to life insurance. I'm going to keep saying that until someone proves me wrong in the comments.
Amazing.
It's a beautiful day. I'm in Florida, not in my studio, but the show goes on, man. And we had an amazing opportunity to be the podcast sponsor at Tom Wall, I should say Dr. Tom Wall's second annual life insurance event. He had 400 people show up. He had some massive speakers, and I actually had the opportunity to sit down with many of the speakers and interview them. And some of them, I'm getting to know them for the first time. Some of them, I've been following them for years, and it was really cool. So stay tuned. If you're not subscribed to the Better Wealth channel, you'll want to do that because we got some gems going to be dropping these next couple months. But what I love about this show, Dom, is we can kind of talk about what's behind the scenes, what's been going on, and I'll kind of give some inside scoops on some of the things that I learned, some of the people I met. And I think it's just really cool. Number one, to like come full circle, but then number two, I think some of the conversations that we shot are just going to be awesome. So anyways, that's what I thought we would do for the show. And I also believe that we have some Q&A stuff that we'll get into as well. So it's gonna be a fun episode.
Yeah, the best part about when we do stuff like this is I'm usually not in tuned with what happened, what you did, what you experienced, like fully. And so this is me being able to get an update live, and then I get to give my objective feedback on regards to like what I'm hearing, what's happening, what's shaking, it's baking, you shaking hands, kissing babies, and how the industry is being affected by it all. So I'm looking forward to hearing about it, giving my perspective, and being able to give any type of collaboration around this, and then we'll hop into the Q&A after, like you said.
I love it. I love it. So let me first of all just give the reason why we sponsored Dr. Tom Wall's event, because at Better Wealth, our main client is consumers, people that want to work with us directly on how we set up life insurance. And he had an event that was solely for advisors. And so it's like, well, why would we sponsor? Well, two reasons. Number one, Tom supports us for our event. So if you're love the whole life insurance space and want to be a part of a growing community and hear some of the best speakers, definitely check out our event in June. It's going to be unbelievable. And Tom is already said he's supporting, and he's actually going to sponsor our event. So it was one of those things where it's like, hey, friends help each other out, and I'm just grateful to call him a friend. So that was number one of the reasons. And then the second reason, I was just going to support him and show up, but he actually had a great idea. He's like, Caleb, we don't have any podcast sponsor. And I was like, how cool would it be if you were like the official podcast sponsor and you could sit down with people? And believe it or not, we're going to do more of this in 2026 because it was so efficient to sit down with people that just got off a stage and they got to come on our show. It actually was great for his people because they get more exposure, but it was great for us because instead of meeting, virtually with people, I could like almost create like a conveyor belt. And so over 2 days, we've, drum roll please, interviewed 13 people, which was a lot of conversations. At the end, I kind of sounded like I was an 85-year-old man who could barely speak. Sorry for anyone that I just offended that is 85 that can speak, but it felt like I smoked a pack of cigarettes both days, but that was just because I was pretty much talking the entire day. And so anyways, really glad that we did that, and I thought I would share some of the takeaways. But since we don't always talk all the time about the details, do you have any questions going into like the event or?
Yeah, first and foremost, I knew we sponsored the event, but I didn't know that's the perspective we came from, which is brilliant. So big shout out to Tom for coming up with it, and then like us taking advantage of that, because for you to say 13 in 1 or 2 days is an incredible efficiency hack. And I know that you were excited and you came back and shared all the incredible people that you sponsored or that you got to interview. And so questions that I just have is, hopefully they're not all watching this, but who was your one or two most favorite interview that you did?
So I'm going to answer it like a politician because there's a
Amazing.
lot of different themes. I will say Curtis Cloak. Curtis Cloak was He, for those of you that don't know who Curtis Cloak is, he's like one of the literal legends when it comes to retirement planning. He was the guy that discovered and really pioneered the deferred index annuity. He has a software program that helps so many people understand retirement. I believe he's a professor at the American College and is like just been in the space. And I knew of him. I've interacted with him in a few other events. Actually, I spoke at MDRT the same time he spoke, and it was really a weird thing. MDRT is $1 Million Roundtable, and we spoke in Orlando, and I spoke on one. They had like 3 people speaking at the same time. Don't recommend it, by the way. It was kind of like they like heard, like people would like listen to us, and so like if someone was funny, which the middle speaker between Curtis and I was obviously a lot funnier than we both of us because everyone was laughing in the middle, it was very distracting. Anyways, it was unique. I met him backstage, and so I knew who he was, but that was when we first met. But we never really like connected. And then when he sat down, he shared his story, and just the way that I started asking questions, he like shared a story that, in his own words, he's never shared on stage. And it got me emotional. It just was like how he refused to cut corners and how he essentially discovered the deferred index annuity, but there was no money involved in it. Like it was almost impossible to get paid when it first got discovered. But he knew it was the right thing. So it was an equivalent to like, what if we discovered this way to help people with life insurance, but we get paid a lot less? Newsflash, that's one of the things that we do. And it was just him saying like, hey, I'm going to stick to my guns and get this out to the public. And now you can make a living doing it. But when he first discovered it, he couldn't. And he actually brought me back to a quote that I think his grandfather told him when he was a boy. I'm getting just goosebumps just thinking about it. And so he shared that, and then afterwards he's like, yeah, I've never shared that, publicly, kind of deal, or on stage. And he also shared how he had timber, and he like sold a bunch of timber back when he was trying to figure it out just to make ends meet. So it was neat hearing that side, because I knew, like, obviously we talked about how life insurance and annuities integrated into a financial plan makes everything better. And it was cool to hear him, share and articulate that. But hearing him open up was pretty special. And I actually got to pray with him at the end. I got to just pray over him. And, I really do believe this. Curtis, if you're watching this, I believe these next 5 to 10 years are going to be the best years of your life when it comes to impact, when it comes to your ability to make a difference. Good. And that's saying a lot, because you've already accomplished so much. And so that alone was really special. And that was one of 13 conversations that I got to have on camera. And so that would probably be my favorite if I had to pick one.
It is your favorite because it moved you probably one of the most, which shows the power behind just impact, inspiration. Truly, when you touch somebody in a specific way, inspirationally, let's make that very clear, we're able to really change the lives of people. And I love that. And just to over communicate what Caleb said at the very beginning, you already heard an incredible story from him, right? From one of his favorite people that he got to interview because of a powerful story. And all of these episodes are going to be dropped on the Better Wealth channel. So stay tuned to them. Watch in, tune. They're going to be great. I'm excited, as you guys should be as well. So
I love it. So why don't I just go through, unless you have another question, and go through some of the sneak peeks of what you can look forward to.
Yeah, no, let's do it. Let's look under the hood.
Okay. So one of my goals, and if you're watching this and you have a contact with an executive from an insurance company, you can help me here. One of my goals is to interview all the top executives at the major mutuals. So we've done Penn Mutual, we've done Lafayette, but we need One America, Mass Mutual, Guardian, Emeritus, New York Life, Northwestern Mutual. All those would be like a dream come true to like sit down with the key executives. And the first person I actually interviewed was Dennis Martin. Now, he's not the CEO or president of One America, but he's head of distribution. So he's one of the top people in the company. And I still, if you're One America and you're watching this, I would love to get Scott on the show and would be willing to come to you. But it was neat sitting down with him and hearing his story. He's he's Canadian, but part of his like why is he has got really personal around some of the personal things that have happened in his life, like when it comes to long-term care, when it comes to death claims and family. And so he got to share that. And I also, pushed, like kind of like push back on like, here, let's talk about the pros and cons of One America and some of the pros that they do extremely well, but some of the things that like they don't produce a dividend, like they don't publish a dividend. Why is that? What and it's sometimes clear that they are a more conservative company than others. And I got to ask him that. I think the younger Caleb would have just glazed someone the whole time. And even though I have an executive who I have a ton of respect for, with a company I have a ton of respect for, I also want to put myself in the seat of the listeners. And what I've been doing a better job in is, instead of just being present with somebody, I'm present with the people that spend hours watching our content. And so did I leave some on the table? Potentially, because I very much want to set up a time for me to sit down with Scott. But I think the interview was great for One America because they got to share their story. It was great for Dennis because he got to open up about some things. But I also think it was great for our industry because I did my best to try to like, push back and be like, okay, what are some of the things that you guys do really well? And what are some of the things that you may not do well? And I don't know if that will get cut because we have to send it to them first. But I try to ask those things because if any one insurance company says they do great things across the board, that's the definition of not being authentic. And so you lose me and you lose a lot of people. So I think it's fair to say like, hey, this is where we're really focused on, and here are areas that we don't do the best at. And I actually think that raises people's credibility and love for you versus most people think if you admit anything wrong, people are not going to do business with you. And I don't think that could be further from the truth.
Mm. I was now after I hear that, I want to ask the questions of like, what did he say? But I think for the intent of this episode and for you guys to be left with a cliffhanger, for you guys to go watch it, because I genuinely am curious of like, why don't they publicly post their dividend, and why are they a little bit more conservative? Because in my mind, I'm like, well, if you post your dividend and you were a little bit more aggressive from a cash value perspective in your illustrations, et cetera, you would probably win more business, right? And from our perspective, we like One America and we think they're a great company, but we don't necessarily write a ton of business relative percentage wise because of some of the things that we just talked about just now. So nonetheless, there's a lot of cliffhangers there. I'm excited to see that, and let's move on to the next.
Yeah, so the next interview, and I'm just doing based on my notes, it's not necessarily chronological, but Curtis Cloak, I already mentioned. He's the guy that discovered the deferred index annuity, has software known for being one of the top retirement experts in the space. And outside of him sharing personal stuff, which I think is really special in his story, his ability to articulate life insurance, annuities, and investments, really well done. And just like talking about it unemotionally and just saying like, you're actually much better off for clients if you incorporate those things into a financial plan. It was over an hour conversation. I think it was an hour and 13 minutes we chatted. So obviously there's a lot more there, but that was a fun interview. I think that is going to get a lot of people's attention because Curtis is online, but I don't think he's got a ton of interviews that he's done. I think we could easily have the best interview on him, and he's been doing this 40 plus years. So that's like the leverage effect of content. Interrupt me. I'm just going to keep going, but interrupt me if you have a follow up.
I was literally just going to say what you just shared is that I've actually, before you brought up his name in interview, never heard of him. And I've been in the space for quite some time. For better or for worse, that is unfortunate because he sounds like a genius and a guru. And so I think it's amazing that we're able to have a platform to get people like him that have been in the space for 40 years to share their insights before they pass, and we're able to like get them and articulate them extremely well. That's exciting. That's exciting in a lot of ways. So, which is kind of like what you did with Nelson Nash, right? You're able to get some of the best of the person before they pass. And I don't know how old he is. Like he could literally be, 60 because 40 years plus 20 in the year. But regardless, it's really cool that we're able to do that.
Yeah, no, I think our interview with Nelson Nash, I'm excited because one of the things that we're going to do is like almost remake it and put it on YouTube and make it a little bit more dynamic from like a viewer standpoint. And those are the type of interviews that I'm just so grateful for. I had a really good sit down with Greg Helema, the person that helped start Better Wealth before he passed. And like, those are the interviews that I I'm like so grateful I did, because it will last forever if preserved. And it's really special. It's really special. So it's almost like what's that song, like if I die, like almost like your message becomes amplified greater when you're not here. And so it's like one of the most valuable things you can do if you're just watching is like get as much things documented, and you'll be amazed on how people will start paying attention, and you might be able to influence and help people even if you're not around, which is something that I think is selfishly cool, and why I want to produce so much content in my life is I want the ability to impact and encourage people even if I'm not here. So that's cool. Thanks for mentioning that. The next person that I chatted with was Eelfie Taylor, and Eelfie lives in California. He's literally built like a Greek god. He makes you look skinny, Dom. He's
Amazing.
jacked, dude. He actually has a I think it's an Amazon special or a series or something, but he's like doing the whole like working out. He's a top advisor. He's like just a super well spoken guy, and it was fun to just sit down with him. I met him 5 years ago through Jim Sabernickel. Shout out Jim. We actually went to a Packer game together, and I just showed up. He showed up. He's from California. It was like a pretty cold day, and like boom, that was like our bonding, is watching the Packer game in Lambeau Field. And then I think I had him on like 5 years ago virtually, but then kind of like lost touch with him, and like to reconnect with him, hear his articulation of how he sells life insurance, his definition of integration, but then also like how he coaches people. And before you're like, hey, I'm not an advisor, this doesn't is not relevant to me. I do think it's important, even if you're not an advisor, to understand sales psychology, because if you understand sales psychology, it should increase or decrease your conviction when it comes to like, should I use life insurance? And he talked about how he gets around some objections and how he helps people grow in their conviction and sell more and help more people. And I think that alone, if you're an advisor, it's a must listen to. If you're not an advisor, it's great to hear that perspective of like an industry leader and how he talks. So that was really special.
Hmm.
Had the oh,
Yeah, I'm curious. Some of these people I've heard their names. I've never actually like, looked them up or anything like that. I'll usually stay in my lane and just build what we're doing. But as we're doing this, I'm able to kind of see a little bit more for contextually. Um, there's even an article that's that brings his name up that talks about like the celebrity advisor, right? And that was back in 2013. And so I'm just curious how somebody like him became quote unquote. Oh, and that was written by Forbes. How somebody like this like became that in a very short nut in the window. And he's got over 100,000 followers on Instagram, and he doesn't necessarily even talk about money. It seems like that much. Like even on his bio for Instagram, he doesn't even mention that. He just says family, business, yogi, and charity, right? So I'm curious, in a nutshell, how he became who he was.
dude,
So like,
he's
if you
he's
have a professional background somewhere.
yeah, he's the definition of positive, and he's like unrelenting. Like he is a workaholic, and in a good way. Like he works extremely hard. He cares deeply. He shared on the he has like 15 businesses that he's currently running. And yeah, I mean, when I met him, he was one of the top producers, and he put in the work. Like he was doing that and meeting with clients kind of deal. And so to this day he still does that. And but he's just plays the game where he's in LA, so he's able to be in some circles that are cool. So yeah, I mean, I think all of that is just a result of how he shows up, and anyone that watches our interview is going to see like, oh yeah, I can see why someone like him is going to be successful. Like I'm like, him and Carlton need to be good friends, because they give a lot of the same energy, just from like, how they show up, how they talk.
Cool. And he's married? Question
I
mark.
I don't know the status of his
Okay.
relationship.
The only
Yeah.
reason I asked is I like see something very similar to somebody with the same last name, another like very public influencer. Seems like they could be as like 200,000 subscribers. So it just seems like their family in general, if this is the right who, so don't quote me on it. Like they're just like a go-getters in the fitness dedicated together. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a great interview to watch. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
let's
gonna
move
be
on.
fun. The next interview is with Harlan Accola. He is the reverse mortgage guy, and what's cool is I've had two good interviews with Harlan, but they've been really like high level. And I was like, Harlan, we got to do something like we got to show the numbers. Like our audience loves case studies, and they are working on a software to actually like you input your information and it outputs like how a reverse mortgage could help or not help. It's very similar to what we're building on the life insurance side, and it was really cool. So he shared with me some different scenarios, and it was cool to like see his screen. We shared his screen, and in the interview, we'll not only be together, but we'll be looking at his screen, looking at case studies. So that was fun.
Amazing. The reverse mortgage industry is probably the second most misunderstood industry besides life insurance, and you
I
can
would
throw
say it's
annuities in there to
way,
some
yeah, I
degree.
would say it's way more misunderstood than life insurance. I would
So
say it
even
has
more
a
so,
worse
right?
name. I
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
So it's a super unfortunate, but Harlan's definitely one of the good guys, and so that's going to be a great interview.
If you're an advisor, life insurance agent, or someone who just loves the life insurance space, we have a must-attend event for you. It's our 5th annual Life Insurance Summit, June 15th through the 17th, right here in Nashville, Tennessee. Not only are we going to have the biggest names in the life insurance space, but this is also an incredible opportunity for you to meet and connect with like-minded individuals and be a part of our ever-growing community. Learn more and get your tickets before they sell out in the link in the description or pinned comment. Can't wait to see you there.
Yeah, and also like life insurance. There's bad actors in it that have given
For
it a
sure.
bad name. But I'm telling you, there was something that Harlan shared from a tax strategy standpoint that was genius. Like, I was like, everyone should do this just from what you told me on the tax side, and so that will be like the hook to why you should go check that out. But it was just
Uh-oh.
like
Uh-oh.
I've known about reverse mortgages for years, and I said on that interview, you literally shared some things with me that I never knew, and it just that much makes more sense to like if I, no matter how wealthy I was, when I turn the age that I can use, which I think I don't know, is 59, like around that age, I am for sure going to use a reverse mortgage if it's around. That's the thing. It's like it might not be around when we're heading into that age, but if you're able to look into a reverse mortgage from an efficiency lens, it I would encourage you to do so. The next person I sat down was Garrett Gunderson, and he's impossible to have a bad interview with because he's just a content machine. One of the things that Joel wanted me to do, and Joel's our producer, is he's like, Caleb, a lot of people have been asking about the Rockefeller framework. Ask Garrett what his framework is and what the Rockefellers do and how ordinary people can do that. And so we speak for over an hour, and he painfully, and I say painfully because we go through every detail of the steps on how
Wow.
ordinary people could incorporate the Rockefeller strategy into their own life. And we kind of do two versions. We do like the basic, and then like, hey, you're not billionaire, you're not like worth 30 million, but you're doing maybe better than the average. What you could do if you really want to turbocharge some of these things. But that was cool, and it
Mm.
was normal. Garrett's another one of these guys that sometimes can be hard to pin down because it's very good at speaking. But I like pressed him on some things, and it was that will be a fun interview. And it's
Yep.
there's nothing in the interview that's like shocking, but I love asking people like break things down in steps because it makes them better clarify their framework. And I Garrett gave the 3 steps in like each version, and I think that alone will be super helpful.
I'm excited to hear about that one, specifically because the idea of the Rockefeller method, we've talked about it many times on the Land Asset Show and also the Better Well Show, and that is meant for the intention of somebody with significant wealth, and using a an irrevocable trust within that process. And so when we talk about it, we never really go into the details and the minutia. That is because it's for 1% of people. But when it's talked about and presented, even like how we did, for better for worse, we're not talking about it and saying, hey, like this is only for the 1%, the other 99%, like shut your ears off. Like we just talk about it broad terms, and sometimes everybody thinks it could be for them. But if Garrett is able to articulate in a specific way of how can I get a piece of this strategy and be able to implement it in a way that is still be good for me, even though I'm not somebody with significant wealth, I think that's going to be an incredible episode. So I'm excited to see that for sure.
Yeah, no, and shout out to Joel because he really framed it in such a way that helped. The next person I interviewed was Kuldeep. Kuldeep is, I think, one of the top agents / advisors at Mass Mutual, which is, I mean, Mass is a major company, and so to have that status means you're doing serious business. And he talked about premium finance in whole life. So a lot of people that do premium finance are just solely IUL focused, and I only had 15 minutes with him, but we maximized that, and he went right into the jugular to, you know, why whole life, what he does with wealthy families. And after he's like, hey, dude, send this to me because I got to make sure compliance approves it. So I hope you can see it. I don't think there's anything crazy that we said, but it was funny. We flowed, and then I cracked up when he texted me that because I'm like, oh, of course, we'll get you that.
Everybody with their security licenses, huh? To run through the compliance train. So
yes,
better for worse.
Yes.
Amazing.
The next person I interviewed was Tom Love, and I have known of Tom Love ever since I got into the space. He was the founder and creator of the Breakaway League, and it was like a kind of like an exclusive whole life insurance inner circle. And so I knew who he was, and sold a lot of life insurance. He focused mainly on like, hey, taxes are going up. You want to get your money into life insurance to make it tax exempt. And he didn't necessarily focus on the design of the policy, but he just focused on like getting all your money into life insurance. So as you can probably imagine, there were people that really like him, and there are some people that feel like, yeah, he's a little too aggressive when it comes to that. And to be honest, I'm probably in the camp where I like what he's saying, but then he's saying some, like, his pretty much solution is like, get all your money off the radar screen of the IRS. And he goes as far as to saying Roth IRAs, like, he wouldn't be shocked if they got taxed one of these days. And he wouldn't go as far as to say that federally they would get taxed, but he does say, like, states like California and other states, you better believe that they could go after your Roth IRA and start taxing that at the state level. And he puts a very strong argument together to why, in his belief, you need to get your money off the radar screen of the IRS. And the only way, and really the only way to do that, is to use life insurance. And most people, including Curtis Cloak, including everyone else in the retirement space, would disagree with what Tom shared. And yet I feel like Tom shared a very convincing message. I don't buy it from, like, I wouldn't make that our message, but I do think it's helpful to have people like that because they do a better job. Sometimes you can be so middle of the road that you don't stand for anything. And I think standing for something elevates and highlights values. And there is an aspect to Tom's conviction that I'm like, yeah, I understand why you're successful. I understand why people come to you. And it's attractive for you to be willing to stand for something.
I was going to say literally the same thing. Because, like, regardless of beliefs, I appreciate that he believes in something and he goes hard in it. So that alone will be fun to watch because of it.
Yeah, the next person I interviewed was a guy by the name of Nick Palumbo. Well, it's Palumbo. So sorry, Nick, for butchering your name. Yeah, Palumbo. Yeah, let's go with that. And he spoke on adversity. He's like been friends with Bob Castellone and has like Leap ties. So he's been an advisor for a long time, shared like the power of life insurance, how it's integrated. He actually gave the 10 commandments to money. So like the first part of the interview was really good, just practically. But then he talked about adversity. He talked about, holding his baby in his arms that just died right after birth. And he talked about his personal life challenges, and he talked about some other things that were really, really deep, and shared it not out of just talked about it to create hope, create create purpose kind of deal. And so that it was special. It was cool to like you have a stranger and sit down and then want to be able to cry with him. And I think it's one of those aspects that people will appreciate when they hear. I think there's another interview I did with Kaysen, who he talked about a tax strategy, but then he also talked about him being homeless, and it was like pretty meaningful for him to open up about that. I know multiple people really appreciated him sharing his story.
The Paul, Nicholas Palumbo, he's got a tag on his website that says a better, more complete approach. And so he's looking into the better way as well, and really talks about efficiency. So it seems like his beliefs around money in a lot of ways align with ours.
And he gets that from Leap, because Leap's definition of efficiency is something that will work in as many scenarios, if not all scenarios. And so it's funny how much our language has indirectly been influenced by Leap. Like, the people that we learned wasn't directly from Bob Castellone, but a lot of my mentors and the people that have impacted you have indirectly learned from Bob Castellone. So it's neat. It's neat how that all works. And like, Nick still has a personal relationship with Bob. So it's just wild to be. And like, when people casually are like, yeah, I've been doing this for 40 years, you go, holy crap, like, I've been doing this longer than I've been alive. And I think that's cool, even to be able to capture that, because we're able to capture in an hour conversation some of wisdom that is distilled into 40 years of experience, which is pretty special.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Did you mention Kaysen's name right after that because you interviewed him?
Yeah.
Was he there? Oh,
he was not
really?
there. He was
Amazing.
not there.
Oh,
No. Kaysen
gotcha.
was not there, but he's someone that opened up about being homeless and like why he's so passionate about that. And it's fun to hear people like say thank you for sharing that story.
But Kaysen, he spoke at our event last year, and he rocked the stage, and actually was one of the highest rated speakers, and a lot of it had to do with the way that he shared his personal story of him going from like homeless jail to like a very successful person in the tax space. So yeah, it was really cool.
Yep. Shout out to you, Kaysen, if you're watching this. Next person is Phil Budin. And Phil's another one of these guys that have been doing this a while. And I've known Phil when I first got into this space. The insurance company that we did a lot of business for, he was one of their top producers. And, I looked up to him. And then, throughout the career, I actually traveled and spent time with him in California at their beautiful home and did a little consulting. And now it's almost fun how like tables have kind of turned, where it's like you get into the space and he's like one of the top guys. And now we're like on level, and now he's like asking me for my advice in some areas, not in all areas, but it's just neat. And he shared how he practically used life insurance. He talked about his definition of infinite banking. He even shared like different examples of how he's used life insurance for different investments. He shared a story that back in the day, he like got life insurance for someone's son, and then their dad was like a really prominent real estate person, and like had Phil come to breakfast with him and like chewed him out, and Phil like explained to him why life insurance, and by the end of that they were like good friends, and the dad went from like thinking he scammed his son to like wanting to get life insurance himself. And so I think that alone is a fun story to be like, okay, you're not alone if you have moments of doubt, or if other people think that this is a scam. But I think it's just important to hear, like, the way that I articulate things is one way. You articulate things a little different. That's one way. But the more people you hear that have had experiences, and he's another guy that has, been in the business longer than we've both been alive. And there's just some cool things that you pick up on that. And so he wasn't someone I was planning on interviewing, but when I saw him at the event, I was like, hey, you want to jump in? And he just wrote a book, and he shared a little bit about that book. And he's just such a gifted speaker, and I think it's going to be exciting to see him continue to make a difference.
Anybody that's been in this space for 40 years has some wisdom. And anytime somebody that's been in for 40 years speaks, you definitely want to listen. So love it.
Hey, Phil, if you're listening, that means you're old. That's what Dom said. Okay. So next person is Dr. Wade Pfau. And Dr. Wade Pfau is like known for being the guy when it comes to the academic spaces, when it comes to retirement planning, and his research around volatility buffer, using life insurance to potentially spend more money. You have his book on your shelf.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's literally this one, right?
yeah,
It's right here.
it's a very dense book. It's a very dense book. You want to
Super
turn,
dense.
yeah. So it's dense. He's written a
It's
book. He's actually written his recent book that just came out is like a shorter version of that. I bought it to support him, but I was like, what are the chances that you're going to get an audio version of this? Because I think it would be really beneficial for me to read or listen to. And yeah, I mean, Tom Wall is got his doctorate under Dr. Wade Pfau. So it's just like, he's like the
mm,
guy. I interviewed him 5 years ago virtually when we almost had no platform, and to be able to re-interview him when we have a bigger platform in person, you could make the argument that just that interview alone would be make the whole trip worth it, because I do think
mhm.
we're able to help more people get exposed. And I he's not declined. I think there's a really good chance that he's going to come out to our event. So if the dates can
Oh,
work and the details can work, how cool would it be to host one of the top retirement researchers in the game at our life insurance summit? I think that would be really cool. And let's just say there's a good chance that we can work something out. So stay tuned for that. And again, this is another call to action. If you're not signed up for our event, please do yourself a favor and do like make that happen, because you will not want to miss this year. Some of the other speakers that I can't publicize today, they're big,
uh-oh.
and
Uh-oh.
it's gonna be big. So, anyways, Dr. Wade Fowle was a great interview, and he came out with his brand new book. He literally, well, I think it's like third edition of some books. So if you just look up his most recent book on Amazon, it'll pop up. And I literally got to go through his book and like go chapter by chapter. And I'm like, give me the summary here, give me the summary here, give me the summary here. And that was like a fun thing. So that was cool. I didn't want to overstay my welcome, so I think I interviewed him for over an hour. Then I was like, okay, I
Oh, wow.
probably need to wrap this thing up. So
He's a genuine legend in the space, like
yeah,
legend. So
yeah.
it's epic.
He's fun. Next person was Jason Sanger. He's the founder and creator of Wealth Building
Wow.
Cornerstones, and so he's got a really cool software that breaks down, actually showing you life insurance and investing and volatility buffer and what they call covered asset strategy. And we had a great sit down, and we're going to do part two where he's going to go more into software. But that
Mm,
that was really cool. Wealth Building Cornerstones gets criticized for not being like a full retirement planning software, because it's not, but it's really, really good for showing you how life insurance can be integrated to give you more options. And I think it does a really good job where a lot of retirement software overcomplicates things or is like overwhelming. And you can show people like, hey, if you have a one-to-one life insurance and investment deal, this is what type of options you have in the future. I think that alone is really powerful, and it makes me even think like, how can we incorporate some of that for some people that come to us? Because it's not for everybody, but for some people, they would really appreciate the clarity that comes out. And so he was there, really cool to sit down with him. He wasn't able to go into too much detail, but that our part two virtually will be what I think is going to be awesome to do, like his big picture. And then I really wanted to do a walkthrough of his software, and that's coming soon. So
mm.
yeah, that was good.
You know what's cool about this? Just like seeing his name come up is once upon a time, and it'll still happen at some point in the future. We wanted to make a movie around the and asset, and it'll still happen. But we have a ton of old footage of Caleb when he first got started in the space, and one of them is with him and Jason. And so it's going to be fun to see the transformation in you personally on like who Caleb was then into who Caleb is now, and see the differences in interviews. I think that type of documentation is a really cool thing to keep.
Yeah, it's special. It's special. And he's
Yeah.
also from Wisconsin, and so it's cool to have some people just representing, because that's where my roots are. I sat down with Denzel Rodriguez at the very end. He was at the event. I was like, Denzel, you want to do like a quick recap? So he just recaps what was valuable to the event. I'm not even sure if we're going to air it, I might give Denzel the footage to be able to do, because there's just so much. I don't, I'm going to give Joel the ability to chop it or not, but it was really good. I always love talking to Denzel. So shout out to you, Denzel. And then I got to sit down with Tom, and that video at the time of this recording, I think has over 1,000 views on the And Asset channel, which is awesome. And I know how things work when you're at the event. Like, I did a sit down recapping all the speakers with Dave Anderson, and I'm really glad that we did that because it was fresh. And then even a week later, things get a little foggy. And I sat down with him at the time. Yeah, it has over 1,000 views, and just went through speaker by speaker, and he kind of shared why he had them speak or his biggest takeaway. And it was awesome to just capture that. And I think that's a great commercial for his event going forward. So obviously we want everyone to come to our event, but if you have a second event that you want to attend, Tom's event is the way to go. I mean, it's definitely different. Tom takes a different approach. We take a more scrappy, less bougie approach, and the ticket prices show. Tom's event is way more bougie and is more expensive. And I think both events are amazing, and you're going to get different aspects of it. And so that's why his insurance event is the first event that we've sponsored like that. We've sponsored other events where we're like the only insurance company, but his event, Two Advisors, it's like we sponsored, like paid money to sponsor, to support him. And I wouldn't have done that to anyone other than him at this point because of who he is and what he stands for. And so, yeah, by the way, Joel, you said to keep it to 20 minutes. We're already 41 minutes, so we'll skip Q&A for this episode. But I do think it was a special time, and I want to just thank all of you for giving us the ability to do something like this, because very much, like, I know that I've heard from so many of you that you appreciate the content, and we help you in some way, which is always encouraging to hear. But if we didn't have an audience, it would not give me the ability to have these conversations and reach out to these people and have the confidence to sit down. And so it's really it comes both ways. It's like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? And the answer is yes. Having a platform is great. I'm grateful that we have an impact, but having a platform also allows us to make moves, and I am forever grateful for that. So whatever we can serve you, just know that it's ditto, and it really is like, it's a two-way street. And that's why like I'm more motivated than ever this year to provide more value. And I think this lineup alone, as you can see why I was so excited, like, we got that's a solid way to start 2026. And it's setting the stone, it's paving the way for some other big combos. Sometime we'll break down our strategy of how to get Dave Ramsey and Robert Kiyosaki and some other people on the channel. That alone is going to be a fun case study on how we pull that off. And every big interview helps build more credibility. Every subscriber, every person that helps boost our stuff gets us more relevant to be able to make conversations and reach out to people.
As long as the strategy comes to fruition, then then we'll share it. If we never get Dave on the show, then we'll never share it.
It's gonna make a heck of a video, even if we don't. Can you imagine a YouTube video like Dave Ramsey rejected me to his face kind of deal? Like, that would be, hey, Dave,
that's true.
If that's true, which I'm hoping it will be, he either says yes or no to my face, then we'll win either way. Obviously, it'd be better, Dave, if you came on, but you better believe I'm gonna monetize either answer.
Amazing, love it. All right, well, Caleb, thank you so much for being such an incredible asset to the industry. Thank you for being able to be a who and having a platform to be able to bring some of the best minds in the entire space industry to be able to be heard. Because without what you're doing, they wouldn't be able to be heard. They wouldn't be able to be seen. And you're doing an incredible job being an advocate for what we're doing here. So with that being said, everybody, we didn't really talk much about anything that we specifically do, but the number one thing is come to the event, right? The event. And if you come, we'll look forward to seeing you. It's going to be a great time, and you're going to get tremendous amount of value. With that being said, until next time, have a great day.